Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and get us started here. Thanks so much everyone for joining. Welcome to today's webinar on buyer perspectives on organic vegetable sourcing. Thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to have you here for the next hour. My name is Vivian and I will be today's host for today's session, but I will be passing off the mic soon to David, who will be moderating the conversation. I work on the consulting team here at Rodale and am part of the markets team supporting organic farmers, those transitioning, and those who are curious about organic production, processing, handling, and organic buyers through their transition to organic practices through identifying markets and connecting with buyers. The markets team at Rodale Institute has partnered with the Organic Trade Association to grow the organic marketplace via TOP. TOP is the Transition Organic Partnership Program and is a network assembled by the USDA's National Organic Program to help conventional farmers transition to organic. TOP offers a range of benefits, including mentorship programs, development grants, and technical assistance. There we go. Today's session is supported through the United States Department of Agriculture Transition to Organic Partnership Program, which is a program administered by the USDA's Agricultural Marketing Service National Organic Program. And you can learn more about it at this link here, organictransition.org. And you can also see all of the other events that we'll be hosting throughout the year. So today's session is the second of our virtual event series focused on organic markets for vegetable operations. This webinar is focused on buyer perspectives on effective organic sourcing. And if you're interested, next week we will be hosting an advisor call where we will be going over learnings from the first webinar that took place last week, which was markets return on investment of organic transition. And this webinar to answer any remaining questions that you may have. So please feel free to use the Q&A box if you have any questions, and only use the chat box if you have any additional comments, but use that Q&A box if you have any questions, and that helps us filter through and read a bit more easily. Before I pass the mic to David and to introduce the other panelists for the day, please know that this webinar is being recorded and it will be shared out in about a week or two. And all right, so without further ado, I will pass the mic off to David. David is the Food Hub Business Development Manager at Food Connects. I'll just do this real quick. He is based in Food Connects is based in Southern Vermont. He joined Food Connects in 2020 with over 25 years of experience in food and farming related occupations. He's helped the Food Connects Food Hub triple their annual sales. And prior to joining Food Connects, David operated Rainbow Harvest Farm in Greenfield, Massachusetts, producing organic vegetables, herbs, nursery plants, fig trees, and specialty food products. He was a founding farmer at the nonprofit Greenfield Community Farm, where he led the farm through its initial years of development and production. And David spent almost nearly a decade working in retail food co-ops, both in California and Massachusetts, primarily as a produce manager and buyer. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Vivian. Excited to be here with this wonderful group. I think I'll probably learn something here as well. So to start, I'm going to ask Whitney to introduce yourself, please. And if you can just mention what organic crops do you buy, or how does that relate to your role, and what areas do you source from?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Whitney Herrera. I am currently a buyer for Whole Foods Market. I currently manage our snacks categories, so that includes dried nuts, dried fruits, freeze-dried fruits, and then any kind of shelf-stable fruit or vegetable snack. I currently source pretty much anything that is a dehydrated or a dried fruit. I don't work too directly with farmers, but I do work really closely with brokers and brands who do leverage farmers directly on some organic sourcing. So examples are, we have an organic buckwheat farm that we work really closely with on a buckwheat snack. I work really closely with our suppliers on sourcing organic mangoes, organic fruits for freeze-dried. So pretty much all across the board of vegetables, as long as it's shelf stable, that's my realm. But really excited to talk with everybody, and also looking forward to learning from everybody here today.
Thanks so much, Whitney. Kenny, would you mind introducing yourself, please, and same questions around what crops do you purchase and where do you source from?
Excellent. Thanks, David, and everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I work with Whitney at Whole Foods Market. We're in different kind of channels. I'm in the fresh produce and floral space. I'm kind of like the point contact across the country for all of our local farm programming. Really buy every crop you could imagine, really end to end, full line, coast to coast, border to border. So, Tennessee organic chestnuts, Montana, Flathead Lake cherries, Maine potatoes, Oregon dahlias, Hawaiian papaya, just everything you can think about. And so I have other people that help me, but I do the primary coordination and farm partnership management and strategy, assortment strategy kind of work. So I head up all that. Really happy to be here. We source directly from farms where we can, large, small, and really small. But we generally avoid large shippers or wholesalers or brokers. We do partner with really great mission-driven food hubs and distributors, such as Alex at Happy Dirt, and others around the country that have the same values that we have on how we approach purchasing. But thanks to you all for having us. I love Rodale, and so anyone on this call made the right move by joining up with this with the Rodale group here. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kenny. And Alex from Happy Dirt, if you will please introduce yourself, what organic crops do you buy and where do you source from?
Thanks, David and Kenny. I just wrote down, I need to reach out to you about organic chestnuts because I need to find a source for those. My name's Alex Borst. I'm the purchasing manager at Happy Dirt. You might have formerly noticed as Eastern Carolina Organics. We're a collaborative LLC based out of North Carolina, but we have farmer owners as part of our company. So we're not a co-op, but kind of a functional co-op as an LLC. We work with farms up and down the East Coast and now have a West Coast program and do some import products as well. But the majority of our product that we source from is out of North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania. So we try to hug the coast and move up and down with the seasons. And in terms of what I source, at this point, we probably at any given time have about 150 to 200 SKUs in our warehouse. So we range from fresh produce to pantry and grocery items like local cheese, local milk, kombucha, things like that. But the majority of what we sell is certified organic fresh produce. So we're mainly a retail distributor. So we service, mom and pops, restaurants as well, but mainly retail distribution centers and direct to store delivery. And that's in North Carolina and up and down the East Coast is mainly our market for where we're sending our product.
Thanks so much, Alex. So I've got quite a few questions here prepared today. If the buyers on this panel are anything like me, we can talk all day about what we do because it's a lot of fun and really enjoy working with farms local and across the country. So I'm going to start off with kind of a somewhat general question, and then we'll get into some specifics. And maybe Alex, if you can kick us off, what are the most important criteria that you consider when selecting farm partners to work with?
Yeah, thanks, David. So over time, I think that's developed. When we first started back in our company was founded in 2004, pre-FSMA, the late 2000s food-borne illness outbreaks, but after the tobacco buyouts. And so we kind of did a lot of like local work for 10 to 15 years, bringing in farms and kind of building them out before a lot of the food safety apparatus had developed at the federal level. But now that we're a lot more mature of a company and we're kind of in a different environment, we look at a lot of things, but we look at making sure that farms have their party food safety audits because that's something that basically any of our retail partners are looking for at this point. We prioritize certified organic, obviously, so we've committed that this is kind of a low bar. We're always way higher than this, but at least 80% of what we sell will always be certified organic. Right now, we're probably tracking over 90%. And then the product that's not certified organic is often local product, conventional Western North Carolina apples, which are very difficult to do organically. And yeah, other things like that that are not really in our wheelhouse in North Carolina to grow organically or source organically. So I would say food safety, organic certificate, and then a kind of tried and true path towards wholesale. So farms that have done some degree of wholesale. We don't want to be their first outlet. So farms that, know how to pack in boxes, know how to label cases, know how to communicate well. I think communication is a really big part of the produce trade. So those are kind of a couple things that come to mind when I think of what we're looking for in farms.
Thanks, Alex. Kenny, anything different that you look for? What kind of criteria do you have that are kind of, make or break? This is what I'm looking for. This is going to make a great farm partner.
That's awesome. Obviously, with Happy Dirt being really leaders in the country for what they do and sort of the purpose-driven, mission-driven approaches to their supplier partnerships is very much aligned with our values and some of the basics that Alex touched on too. Someone that could put up a pack that's maybe been down the road before, but we have nursed people along with basically nothing from the ground up because we really have identified their product as special. I think it starts off with us as quality as our number one attribute. And so a lot can be learned along the way and trial and error and everything else. So we're not limited just to people that, have done it before, but it does help to kind of keep things moving if they've maybe they have a strong CSA or they've already sell to hospitality or they sell to institutional like schools and they've kind of been around what it takes to put up a pack or hit some food safety metrics, and that does help. And I would say you know anything further than that is more of the alignment with people like Happy Dirt, is just the health of the family farm. People are looking at, supply chain diversity, mixing it up. We like to buy, east of the Mississippi for our East Coast stores, where it's a whole lot easier to buy from all West Coast stores or all your apples from Yakima. We take the hard path, the most rewarding path, by digging into the local and hyper local areas where we have stores. So it's all super exciting.
Kenny, can you say anything more about food safety requirements or certifications that you might require or look for?
Yes, I'd say off the top, moving into more of our crops are being considered high risk these days. And I'd say the sort of the straight up USDA GAP, third-party GAP audit. There's other auditors out there that perform audits and they can be rigorous, but we acknowledge the 86-page USDA GAP audit by accredited auditors. It's just this becoming the standard. And a couple points on that real quick is for folks that are in that space of like, I don't know, no one's asking for this yet and all that. I understand that it's something to embrace, but I would suggest make it a part of your business, lean into it. If you look at it as something it's an extra step or something I got to do or whatever, I'd suggest getting into the mindset of like, it is part of what our business is. And, our yoga moms or soccer dads going to farmers markets asking about a HACCP plan for your microgreens. Not yet, but I think if you did that, you put that up there, it'd be like, okay, this person's committed to food safety and certified organic. I want to entertain giving these folks my dollars. And so a lot of people will go to you, even though they might not be thinking they need that now. But there have been enough instances out there that we've all learned that that's kind of where the industry's going for sure. We already have the safest food system in the world, but when you're that mom or dad that has a child in the hospital, it's everything to you. So we want to try to do the best we can to partner with both people. And the last thing I would say on that is dig into available resources. And I know it's a wobbly thing now with some of the USDA cuts or whatever being considered with grants and all those things. Big topic. But there are resources through your ag extension, through private entities, through some of the other services like Rodale and others, but lean into the available resources for some cost sharing on that. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kenny. Whitney, do you want to add anything? I imagine that some of the farms on the call here may have, maybe processors as well, or be interested in lightly processed farm products. Can you speak to that from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, what Alex and Kenny said are completely true. I would echo everything that they said, especially the last bit that Kenny talked on investing and getting certification. I can only speak on behalf of Whole Foods, but our customers are really well educated and they have an eye for looking for certified organic, or, just like biodynamic crops. So it is worth the investment to go that extra step. I would also say too, like definitely try and step outside of your comfort zone as you're getting into what you're doing. Talk with other farmers, talk with suppliers, maybe somebody who's not in your realm of business, and see where you can maybe make those connections to create a product. I say that because one of my leading products in Center's store started because a supplier really wanted to provide a snack item from buckwheat. And this farmer out of Minnesota was really passionate about transitioning his farm from organic to regenerative. And together over the course of 5 years, they were able to do something really unique and wholesome, not for the planet, but also for our customers too. So I would say don't limit yourself to what you're doing right now. Just try and make connections and see what you can do in different areas. In addition to that, I would say also have conversations with who you're working with on planning out your harvest. I usually talk pretty closely with my private label buyer on certain crops, and we plan demand a year and a half in advance. It's a little bit harder now with climate change kind of throwing things into kinks, but we do look pretty far out for forecasting and plan demand. So really understanding your cycle of harvesting and how that comes into play with first market and retailer.
Thanks, Whitney. And I jump back over to you, Alex. Can you talk about kind of farm size a bit? And, do you work with farms of all different sizes? Is there kind of a minimum scale that makes sense for distribution through Happy Dirt? Or, like what's a minimum order look like? Are you always shipping pallets or truckloads? Are you doing boxes? What does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah, so we're really grateful to have a pretty flexible model when it comes to farm size and scale. So we work with some large sweet potato farms that have thousands of acres. We work with some farms that are just a couple of acres, say growing blueberries or growing other specialty crops, so they can get more value out of the land that they're using. We also work with some farms that are just like they have a small amount of acres, maybe 10 acres, but they do a lot of high density growing, and so they'll grow a lot of different things at once and are able to get a lot out of that land, and then they'll also replant the same acreage at different times of the year. And so it's kind of amazing what some farms have been able to do with high density planting, with just so many thought leaders out there right now in kind of the small farm world, teaching people how to get more out of their land so that they can, support their families and support their workers off of a smaller space. So I think the main thing is a communication piece. So with the smaller farms, we do a lot of advanced production planning, similar to what Whitney was saying about kind of looking forward and doing planning. So with the big farms, of course, we're doing that, but with the small farms, it takes a lot of kind of back and forth, making sure that what's being planted is exactly what we're going to take. And if they're going to plant more than we're able to take, that we understand their planned outlets so that we aren't leaving them high and dry. So long story short, we source from large and big farms, but kind of the markets for each of them are a little bit different depending on where it's going. A lot of the small farms go into our our local distribution, whereas the larger ones might go to Whole Foods, distribution centers or larger customers.
Thanks, Alex. And who has the responsibility of getting the produce to your dock? Is it Happy Dirt or is it the grower?
It kind of depends on the situation. We've got a fleet of trucks, and so we go all around North Carolina doing direct to store deliveries. And so if you're in one of our immediate DSD delivery zones, we will go to your farm and pick up. If you are within like an hour of us, well, obviously, generally farms are fine to come deliver to our dock. And then we also do a lot of work with third-party logistics companies. So maybe that's Country Fresh Logistics who does mushroom deliveries up and down the East Coast. And so we'll coordinate with them and have them backhaul product when they have empty trucks. Or if, someone's delivering into Atlanta every week, we'll get mushrooms picked up in Atlanta. And then it'll kind of come back through various warehouses to get to us. So it kind of depends on the scale, but we're really, I think what we like to do is just approach farms and say, what are you doing now? Like, what's your storage capacity? What's your trucking capacity, et cetera? And then we just try to brainstorm our way through how to make it work. And if it doesn't work, we let farms know what kind of supply chain steps they would likely need to sell to us or to other, folks in our network who might be a better fit. So.
And Kenny, same question for you. Are you working with 10-acre farms? Are you only working with larger farms? And what do logistics look like from farm to DC for Whole Foods? Oh, you're on mute still, Kenny.
A pesky phone ringing in the background. Thanks, David. I'd say that I paint a couple of scenarios for you as the answer is yes, large and small and really small. We do have some suppliers that service direct store delivery, DSD. That's Alex Talk and I. He has a big DSD program there for many of our stores. And so what we often have one farm that goes to one store and they have one item. I mean, so it can be as macro or micro as that is. And we want to entertain that if it's a great quality and awesome product. And so we're not shutting anyone out like that. Those folks have a pathway, and then we have sort of metros, they're little clusters of stores and 8 stores in the Minneapolis metro. And so we'll have like Featherstone deliver direct to those stores. And then they also send larger loads down into our Chicago warehouse. And so we have kind of dual channel. Happy Dirt's a dual channel kind of operation. And so for a small metro or a small store, yeah, we generally have them deliver right to the store dock and and they got to hit the temperature on arrivals and those kinds of things. And that can be tough. It's tough. You'd be surprised how tough it is. You pick something, try to get the field heat out of it, chill it down, and then you get it in your white coolers or whatever, and then get it to the van, and then by then it's lost 2 degrees. It's 2 degrees below or above what we accept. And so it takes a minute to kind of get down on some of that because we cannot have kind of different standards for different folks when it comes to those kinds of things. But then a larger multi-region growers, we'll have most of them feed into our distribution centers. I work closely with the buyers across the country in different distribution centers. Alex mostly services the Atlanta one, but he also goes up the East Coast with a couple of our up Northeast distribution centers. And that's where they, it's just, they usually handle the logistics themselves, or in some cases, our transportation team does book the trucks out and things like that. So it's everything, every size scale imaginable, really.
Thank you. And Whitney, how about you? If you're working with your producers on sourcing, or what size farms are you looking at?
Yeah, it's very similar to what Kenny just described. So for grocery, I feel very fortunate. We have forager teams, which kind of act as like regional buyers. So we source a lot of local sourced items, thinking specifically like nuts in this case. So we might have a smaller producer out in California servicing their product in maybe like a handful of stores. And then I work with very large suppliers too that span across global co-ops too. The good thing about forager-owned brands, though, I would say for farmers is, once a product gets in a handful of stores at Whole Foods, they get a lot of guidance from the forager team, so they can grow very organically within Whole Foods Market to the point where that one grower in California could expand to all the West Coast stores within 5 years or even less. I've seen that happen. So just because we start out with a smaller scaled farm, I've seen those small scale farms grow significantly just because they've had a very catered approach to growing their business, to scaling their farm and production. So I would almost say those are really great partnerships, some of my favorites, because we can kind of help cater what product we want to come out of those farms and into our stores. But yeah, it's a handful. I think majority of what I work with day to day kind of spans across our larger scale farms. But we do have about like 20% of our assortment is smaller farms locally sourced.
Thank you. Kenny, back to you. Can you talk a little bit about pricing? Who sets the price? How is it determined? Is it all contracted ahead of time, or are you buying kind of in season on the fly? What's kind of your primary, and what different ways do you work with growers on pricing?
Excellent question. Very important question. I'd say on that, if you're a larger shipper and you're shipping something, you have a large Pennsylvania farm, which we have great farm partners up there, as you can imagine. It's one of the most fantastic states for organic agriculture. And so if they're shipping something of scale, like it's going to be the dominant item into a large warehouse that services 80 stores, then that cost would need to be kind of more in line with kind of national cost structure on broccoli or whatever it is. There may be, a bit of a localized premium in that case, but in sort of like, it's almost the opposite of what people would expect. Like, it's like the closer you get to the store, we actually will pay more for those items because we know the small producer can't drive the cost out of the system like large scale producers. And so there's scale on that. So we have great partnerships with great farms in Salinas, and some of those started out as small family farms, and so we would have contracts with them. And that's kind of my principal buyer partners in that space, more than national buyers. On the localized front, if it's a regional grower, maybe in that same area, and they have some of those same items, but they service like 20 stores or less, and they maybe do it DSD or they do it through a small food hub, we have a tolerance for a bit of a premium for them, acknowledging, like I said, the scale and the costs for small producers. They don't have the efficiencies, with the premise that the quality is really good but we have ability, and we just mostly eat it on margin because we know we're just going to go out at the same price, right? And then you take it down one step further, the person that hyper local, they service 1 or 2 stores, or up to 5 or whatever, they're going to get paid the most, to be real. And it's like so somebody might say, a consumer might say, well, wouldn't it be cheaper because it's just right down the road? It's like, just not really the way it's set up, more cost relative to their inputs coming in, purchases coming in. It doesn't scale, work at those scales. So we're very conscious to try to be aware. We want a long-lasting generational approach. We don't want just a one-off, one-buy seasonal thing. The market's here, go here. It's not the way we want to play. We want to get a good return where we can, and try to hit a non-insulting retail. But like I said, in many cases, we just put it out at the same retail every time, because we want that grower to get the good returns year after year. And so, so we can be a part of their kind of business approach. Maybe they have a CSA and they have direct marketing. And so I'll spin this in a teeny bit, it's just that we can be wholesale retail, which is what we are. We can be a nice third leg of the stool for some people that are like right now I just do CSAs or I do farmers markets. I don't know if I want to do wholesale because I get a lot less per box or whatever. But if you go 40 items for a farmer's market and you're getting full retail at the farmer's market as you deserve, get that $4 a bunch for kale or whatever. If there's a few things that you grow that you're super proud of, that you feel like you can scale up on, that you're known for, those could be the things that you entree into us with for a wholesale retail environment. And you'll find that that can be, it's like, well, I get a lot less per bunch, but you put 24 bunches in a box and you put 5 boxes on a pallet and you put 5 boxes of other things, then it goes away and you don't have to sit there in the rain to sell. And so there's benefits. And so we can be a kind of part of your revenue plan. And I can go deeper on that bit, but I've seen a lot of examples. We've helped people in that space because scale is it's the biggest thing for a lot of small farms. They want to scale up, they're not sure how.
Thanks, Kenny. That's a really valuable point there. I think a lot of people are maybe in that boat of kind of starting with the farmers market because you've got easy access to a market, and then you kind of you look at wholesale, you look at the pricing, and it can be a hard pill to swallow. But you really need to be looking at what are the costs involved in getting it to market, and what does it mean for your whole operation rather than just for the price of that box. Alex. Same question for you. How is pricing determined at Happy Dirt? Is it the grower? Is it Happy Dirt? Is it collaborative? And are you contracting for those purchases ahead of time?
Yeah, so we we go through we work with over 100 vendors annually at this point. And so out of those 100, we probably do crop planning with maybe 25 of them. And so the other, 75, maybe there's kind of on a rolling basis, like lettuce growers, like Hoop House lettuce growers in North Carolina who always have production, or sweet potato farms that just have year-round production. But the farms that we production plan with, they're it's a lot more involved. They're trying to map out in the winter what the rest of the year is going to look like in terms of ordering seed or starts and planting and such. And so we sit down every year and kind of look at what happened last year and use anecdotes and data to think through how did that go. In terms of did we hit what we said we would hit in terms of how close to plan were we from the year before? Did we see opportunities where we needed a lot more product? And so a lot of those conversations start to guide the costing conversation, because sometimes we can see, okay, like these muscadines were way too expensive at retail. So if we want to keep doing this program, we need to work with the farm on price so that it works at a retail level. But really the past couple of years have been really difficult with pricing, and mainly that's just because of the inflation crisis that we were in for several years. I know things have leveled out this past year, but a lot of farms are, from what I'm understanding, they're getting paid just a little bit more maybe than they were 5 years ago, but their costs are up on average 30 to 40%. And so the struggle right now is trying to get farms to take the time to understand their own costs, because I'm not on farm. I'm not, looking at their books, looking at their inputs, looking at their transportation costs. So sometimes it's difficult to know if farms are underselling their product, and we need to be told that, right? Because again, I don't know their costs. So this past year, we've been doing a lot of work to try to coax farms into, thinking more about that so that we can then communicate to our customers the true cost of what's being grown, and try to get prices up where it makes sense. And maybe we do a lot of blended margin stuff. So say green kale is always like a pretty cheap item to grow. It's also a pretty cheap item at retail. So maybe we'll keep green kale prices low and not raise them, but we'll increase on bunch beets or items that take a little bit more finesse, and take a little bit longer to grow, and try to blend the margin out a little bit more there. So I think, yeah, to Kenny's point, we do the same thing. We kind of do different types of pricing depending on the scale of the farm, depending on how historically products have done in recent years, but also in the current kind of economic and political environment. We're trying to be a lot more mindful of, what do our farms need? Like how can we keep doing this year after year with them, without putting them in a margin compression kind of cycle where every year they're making less and less money. Yeah.
David, can I say something too on this front, more on that?
Go for
One
it.
thing it's tough for farms to know sometimes if they come from the direct sales environment, right? And they understand wholesale maybe be less, but they really don't know. And we're very transparent, even if they're approaching us as a prospective supplier, but especially if they are on board as our partner. I very much am transparent about sharing where the kind of the prevailing market is. It's like, look, just to let you know, you're about $5 out of market, other farms of your volume. So again, we don't say, well, the national market on 24 count beets right now is this. It's just like we don't use that national market. We kind of use the prevailing small, similar size farm to kind of compare. It's like, just to let you know, everybody's kind of in this range and you're coming in over here. And on the inverse of that, if somebody is low, we definitely will acknowledge that and then give them a few bucks to get them up to that level. So it works both ways.
Thank you. Getting into kind of some of the crops that there may be more unmet demand for, Alex, you mentioned it can be, easy to grow kale, and it also goes for somewhat of a low price at times. I know from being a produce manager in the Northeast that as soon as the end of May, early June hits, you get a call from 30 different growers that all want to sell you kale. So kind of wondering, Kenny, I'll throw it to you first. Like, are there certain crops that you have a lot more trouble finding, whether it be in a particular region or nationally? Where do you see kind of the highest unmet demand, or if people are looking to try and grow something new or maybe consider wholesale or transitioning to organic wholesale? What are the crops that you see as being most in demand? And if you have the knowledge, maybe most profitable for the growers as well?
Right. Well, I'm not actively out looking for more zucchini growers or kale growers. I definitely could say that. But having said that, though, if we're going to bring on like a medium-sized South Carolina farm, seventh generation farm that's going to be a DSD for our 5 stores there. Sorry, Alex, I'm going to be cutting into your overall business a teeny bit. But how do I coach them? It's like, well, first of all, it goes back to grow what you love. What are you known for? What are you proudest of? Start with that because you just have some strength around that. And if it's, something like a Sun Gold, a unique tomato variety that's high Brixing, really interesting, comes from Baker Seed or something, or the Southern Seed Exchange, Ira Wallace, something out there. Use something in the slow food arc of taste. The Jimmy Nardello is the best story out there, reviving that back up. But that, it's hard to build a whole program for a supplier, for a grower around that. So we will, in that case, still wind up taking some zucchini and things like that, knowing that they need the lift to fill that van to make the delivery, And so we don't need any more zucchini, but we still will throw them some action because we know that it's hard to just fill a truck with Jimmy Nardellos and ghost peppers, So there's just a little bit of a give and take, but I'd say that back to that thing of growing what you love, what you're known for, and get into the seed catalogs. I know farmers I know are just mesmerized by those, and they're really cool. And even Johnny's. I mean, there's a lot out there. That's where I'm interested. Is tell me something unusual that you had success with. That's got a great flavor profile, great eating experience. Your farmers market customers are thrilled. Your chefs are knocking down the door for it. Just something that shows up in the cooking magazines or like I mentioned, the different seed catalogs and the people that are developing the seed saving approach. That's the stuff I'm looking for. Unique, great flavor, colorful, fun. That's what I'm seeking now.
Thanks, Kenny. Alex, how about you? What's in demand in North Carolina, or what advice would you have on the selection front?
Yeah, I think it depends on the market. So our business is about 30% direct store delivery and 70% into distribution centers. So for the distribution centers, to Kenny's point, we are always looking for specialty items, but we're also trying to make sure that they travel well, that they've been tested, that we're not putting farms in a position where they're planning something that is a difficult sale if we only have one customer and they're pulling under plan or something. We want to make sure that there's enough of a market to not put farms in that position. So we often will look to California. It's always one of the most innovative parts of the US in terms of like bringing new products to market. See what our friends at Coke Farm are doing. See what people like in the Northeast, or not really Northeast, but Pennsylvania, Lancaster Farm Fresh is doing. And also, we're always deep in seed catalogs as well, as Kenny mentioned. And so we're looking for new items and new mixes, but we're cautious because we just want to make sure that we hit the nail on the head and that the farms are happy to grow something. Because the worst thing is whenever you bring something in production planning to a farm and they grow it, and then the demand just isn't quite there yet, or we gave them a variety that doesn't have legs, and so the little tomatoes are getting to our customers even in Asheville or somewhere not that far from our warehouse and already having issues. So we kind of try to be really careful and conservative with scaling farms up on items, on specialty items. But we also have been experimenting around packaging too. So like finding new ways to package the same things that we've been growing. Pre-COVID, there was kind of a big pullback from packaging, but now it's kind of in the lexicon again. People do want packaging. It's kind of the thing that moves the needle in terms of sales growth in a lot of instances. And so we've been toying around with compostable packaging, compostable PLU stickers, different ways to get packaging to market that also isn't just more and more and more plastic, though we do use a lot of plastic, just because the industry is still developing there. So yeah, like we sell a lot of potatoes. So taking all the C-size potatoes out and making a little mixed medley pack that can compete with the Washington grown crop, because potatoes are heavy and they take a lot of diesel to get them from Washington to North Carolina. So, just kind of always looking for new ways to either bring new items to farms within reason and conservatively when planning, but then also packaging and looking at ways to build out what we're already doing in different ways.
I'm just being mindful of the clock here. Want to talk about quality standards a little bit, and if you see any difference in how you evaluate conventional versus organic when product lands on your dock. Are there certain tolerances that you allow for, thinking about size, color, and do you provide guidelines to your growers on what's acceptable or what's expected? Kenny, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think first thing first there with this, just understanding the difference between quality and condition. And to the customer, it's just quality. That's all they know. But for us, they talk to each other. Quality speaks to like, is it meeting like the USDA grade for, like a Red Delicious apple, right? It's got a great amount of lobing, dark color, uniform color, not a lot of scarring or shrift or anything else. And it's a uniform pack, great sugar, everything. And then could be a condition issue, could be an example where it was post-harvest generally stored too hot, stored too cold, got wet, got bruised in handling. It didn't have it was a volume fill box, so it created a condition issue. And so just I think it's a good place to understand. But generally, as far as the tolerances between organic and conventional, we are seeing less and less. There maybe used to be a teeny bit of a tolerance for organic being, well, it is organic. It's like, well, the stuff I'm seeing is a condition issue anyway. So it's not really because organic can be grown at every bit the same quality, meaning the grade, as conventional can. So I'd say no to that generally as a general rule. So we are, again, quality is our number one attribute. So we are looking for the top grades. We don't usually buy choice grades. And so there's all these different Washington Extra Fancy is the premier apple grade, even if you're in North Carolina. So the word Washington Extra Fancy for zucchini, it's a different grade. For a potato, it's a US #1. It's hard to track all the different grades. And so we have a great quality control team that works close with the USDA. If there's any need, we call an inspection to the warehouse, those sorts of things. But generally, it's a conversation. It's a conversation. Look, you picked this too ripe. It's a condition issue. Back off a little bit. Pick the flower a little bit more closed. Those kinds of things are just conversational with a lot of the locals.
Thanks. And anything to add, Alex?
Yeah, I would just add that I think that's kind of to Kenny's point, that's kind of why we start farms out small and say, have you ever sold wholesale before? Because it does take some hand holding to meet the spec to look at a case of beefsteak tomatoes and to make sure you're taking out the largest ones and the smallest ones and having a consistent pack across the case. Um, we have a grower services coordinator who actually is on this call in the participants section, but his name's Taylor Hollenbeck, and he'll do a lot of work kind of going out to farms, acting as our in-house extension agent and helping show farms what the packs need to look like. And so we try to use him as kind of our first line of defense as well as me and our buyers, and try to, talk farms through at the farm level how packs should look, and how long product can store in the cooler before shipment and stuff like that. And then we will, whenever we bring in products, say from a small farm or from a new farm that hasn't done a lot of wholesale, we'll kind of try to find specific customers that we can move the product to if there's issues, because we don't want to, have outright rejections at the very beginning whenever they're trying to just get started and learn more about how to get a good pack. So we kind of have an iterative process of working with our local box clubs and local DSD customers to work through, subpar product, so that we can build them up to being a farm that can supply, say, the Whole Foods stores, DSD, or to the distribution centers, which have a higher standard that we definitely are always trying to meet.
And I just want to remind those who are in the audience that you can enter any questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. In just a few minutes, we'll jump over to answering any questions that you may have. So please enter those now if you have them. Whitney, I'm wondering if you have any advice for growers who are considering transitioning to organic, thinking about, the markets for lightly processed dried fruit, nuts, and where you see trends going in terms of organic versus conventional.
Yeah, it kind of varies based on what kind of crop you're looking to transition into. I would say, kind of going back to what Kenny and I talked to at the beginning of this session, Whole Foods Market customers are really well educated. A lot of parents shop for specifically fruit. They're looking for organic. So I would say that's a really big area to kind of look into investing in that transition. But as a buyer for hundreds of other products, nuts and seeds, I have several conventional products that we have on shelf, knowing that that farm that it's coming from is practicing essentially organic standards, but not quite there yet to get the full certification. Same goes with regenerative certifications. I'm the kind of buyer who, if I have a really good relationship with that source, I know that they're implementing all of the ROC and organic standards onto their land and being really good stewards, but they just can't afford that certification. I'm more than happy to partner with that brand, bring them onto shelf, have them really work with marketing and advertising what they're doing, to really tell the story. So I would say, like, leaning into, what the marketplace is looking for. There's certain products where I think organic really matters, and having that button on your pack matters. Whereas others, I think it's a little bit more forgiving, and customers are more interested and more not educated on getting to know, like, why you're sourcing this item, or why are you making a cover crop for a ready to eat snack rather than just making like a dried zucchini or another kale chip. So if you can tell that story, I think that goes just as far as having certification. But if you are really interested in investing in getting certification, partner with other farmers who have gone that route. I think it is very lengthy. There's a lot of hoops to go through. So if you can get some resources and best practices from your community, I would say definitely lean on them for that.
Yeah. And the last question, let's see, we'll start with you, Alex. What makes for a strong, successful, and resilient farm and buyer partnership?
Yeah, I think I mentioned communication at the beginning of the call. That's something that we really value at Happy Dirt, just because there's so many moving parts. And we've got a warehouse, we've got a team, we've got, deadlines to meet throughout the day. So communication is a big part of it. I think that also, farms finding ways to diversify their income streams. So not being, a farm's only source of revenue. So making sure that they have a good solid base and are, making use of their land and their crop schedule in the best way to fit that customer base. So, not just being a farm that only grows greens in the summer and that's all you grow. That's going to be kind of a headache for cash flow for the farm. If there's ever an issue weather-wise, you could lose a crop, which is a whole year of income. So, I think farms being holistic in their approach to the crops they're growing, not overdoing it, but not underdoing it, making sure they have a mix of maybe storage crops and fresh wet veg, or whatever, maybe it's blueberries, maybe it's something else, but having kind of a mix on the farm. And yeah, and then to Kenny's point about like quality over everything else, I think delivering a packing is one of the biggest things, because if you kind of start to maybe not work well with your pack team on the farm level and you're delivering poor packs, delivery after delivery, that can impede sales, because customers see the quality come through at the store level and are like, I'm going to stop buying this. And that shows in slowing sales. It also shows in just general relationship with quality teams at warehouses, and in kind of the trust with being able to work together on building that program or new program. So, yeah, I feel like that's a big question, but those are a couple things I can think of.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a big question. But yeah, Kenny, what makes for a strong, successful, and resilient buyer and farmer relationship?
I think a partnership is just like any partnership you have in your life. It's sort of a give and take and listening to each other, communication, as Alex said, and being there over the long haul. Farming is, nobody knows better than the farmers on this call. You're at the mercy of Mother Nature. You're at the mercy of climate. We've seen it live, how much it's changed. The market changes, COVID, you throw in all kinds of things. So it's important to have a buyer, in our case, be someone that understands the conditional aspects of growing, is there for you time after time. If you have a frost, a freeze, hailed out, try to be there in any way you can for that supplier, and then come back into them again the very next opportunity. Just over time. And like I mentioned, we are interested in generational relationships. It's good. It's important I say that because it takes about a year to get on board with us. And so you better be in for the long haul. It's like, it's just like, now we're on to the point where kids are taking over the farm, we're babies when we started buying and the kids are actually taking over. We're on next gen a few times over in some cases. And that doesn't just come from, just happen. It happens from just being there, listening, moving and grooving as things happen. And as I don't know about you all, but any personal relationships, it's not double rainbows every single day, So sometimes when you're negotiating costs, it's like, look, it's like, here's the prevailing cost on these things. I want to get you a good return. You're coming in a little high. And so maybe I need to come back off my margins and stuff. So you might not both walk away happy, but you walk away equally unhappy. So some of that goes on. So that's just talking, so that's just real. And being in that space, being in a space to listen, learn, speak when you need to speak up, and don't harbor anything, those kinds of things. Just normal human relationship stuff goes a long way.
Whitney, you have anything to add?
There we go. Yeah, I mean, Kenny said it the best. I think the personal relationships, like being able to jump on a phone call real quick, regardless of the news, if it's bad or good, regarding a crop outcome, is huge. If you can have that level of trust with your contact, whether it's at a farmer's market booth or at a major retailer, that's going to be the biggest game changer for how you grow your business and how you collaborate on any kind of innovation or long-term relationship. So really well said, Kenny. Can't echo that enough.
Thank you. And we're going to squeeze in a couple of questions here. They're just starting to come in now. We have, let's see, from Angelica Rosario, are there any certifications beyond USDA Organic and GAP that are important or desirable? Anybody who wants to take that one?
Yeah, I can speak to that. We've been doing a lot of work with farms that are Fair Food certified. So we've been working to get farms Fair Food certified via the certification program out of the Coalition for Immokalee Workers and the Fair Food Standards Council out of Florida. So I think fair labor standards or fair labor certifications are kind of a big thing right now. They're ingrained in some of Whole Foods' own Source for Good policy programs. They're also ingrained in the in some of the other certifications, such as the regenerative the ROC certification, regenerative organic certification. And so I think that whereas a lot of the certifications have been on food safety and on organic, so how things are grown, I think now the current system is looking to add on the people that are growing the food and making sure that they're in safe working conditions. I know like Fair Trade International and Fair Trade America both are now doing domestic certifications for fair trade product as well. So those are two things we have been looking at with some of our farms that are larger and have a more robust labor apparatus.
Thank you.
Whitney has probably some good input on this question.
Yeah, I was going to say in addition to that, I mean, ROC is always great. I know it's a little bit more intensive to get that certification, but there's one that the USDA just launched, or no, I apologize. The Non-GMO Project just launched a non-ultra processed food verification, which I've actually heard from a lot of suppliers who are actually looking to get that certification, more so over ROC certification. Might not apply 100% to farm direct sourcing, but that's a new shiny one that I think might grab a lot of traction. And then, something that I like to see in center store too, as far as like diversification, not just with your crops and your product that you're sourcing, but also you yourself as an individual. Whole Foods Market shoppers really identify with diverse backgrounds. That includes farmers, suppliers. So there's a women-owned certification that we have a lot of brands engaged in. A lot of those really scream to our customer because our customer base is also diverse and they like to see that. But yeah, I think those are the top ones that come to mind.
I'd like to finish it out with agreeing with everyone here. Whole Foods has taken a large position on social accountability. The Fair Trade USA around the world as well, but also bringing it home domestically. We sell it through our Source for Good program that no one knows what that means, but I think they see sourced and good. And so they think they fill the blanks in on the rest. But we partner with people like Happy Dirt in a big way on the Fair Food program, which is the gold standard. And we pay a social premium as buyers. So it goes right to the workers and not through the ownership channels. So it's really good worker advocacy groups for working conditions, all kinds of support. So that's an amazing group. We're looking at that stuff. ROCs is talked a lot about these days, and there's other soil health, climate initiatives that are worth looking at. Like Whitney said, just supplier diversity and supply chain diversity. We want our assortment to come from farms that look like people we live with and hang out with, and it's a mix. And sometimes in markets for large big ag stuff, it comes down to one group or whatever, and the rest don't get access to markets. Maybe they don't get access to loan relief. They don't get access to good any kind of good low cost loans, low interest loans, and things like that. So women owned, veteran owned, we're all in, and we want to create markets. That's what we can do. Whitney and I, is we're merchants. we buy and sell stuff. So we don't need a law to tell us to do it. We just do it. And so we're in the game on that 100%.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So we do have a few more questions here, but it is after 3 o'clock. So we are going to hold on to those for now. We do have the session next week where we'll be answering more questions for everybody. So I just want to really thank you, Kenny, Alex, and Whitney, and I'm going to pass it back to Vivian.
Yeah, thank you so much. I also want to echo David and thank you as well for moderating such a great conversation. Like you said, I'll just share my screen again. So thanks everyone for joining. If you are interested in joining our conversation networks, you can visit this website here to register, or you can email us and we're happy to direct you to the right place. But yeah, thank you so much, Kenny, Whitney, David, and Alex. This was a great conversation, and thanks everyone for joining in on the call, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.